Hi everyone, it's Andrea from Movers and Bakers. Today I'm going to share with you how I make my matcha roll cake. This is a beautiful, light, fluffy matcha cake filled with strawberries and cream filling. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's get baking. Right, to start with, we are going to sift together our dry ingredients. So I have a little bit of parchment on my work surface, and into a sieve I'm going to pop 4 ingredients. Plain flour, some corn flour, some baking powder, and finally some matcha. Now the really important thing with making a matcha cake is you have to make sure you get really good quality matcha, otherwise your cake isn't going to turn out green, it's going to turn out a sludgy browny colour. So always make sure you get really good quality matcha powder. Now, I'm sifting all this together because I want my dry ingredients to be really light to go in to keep my cake really fluffy. So that's why I'm going through the motions of this. And once you've finished one sift, we're going to do this 2 more times. So I've got a bowl here that I'm going to tip all these dry ingredients into. And once you've tipped it in your bowl, we're just going to repeat that a couple more times. Last one. And what all this repeating of the sieving is doing, as you can see, is it's made my mixture, it's mixed it really well for a start, but it's also made it really fine and really light. So when I come to mixing it in with my wet ingredients in a little while, I'm going to have really light ingredients going in. It's not going to weigh my air that I'm going to get into my eggs in a minute down. So that's that done. Now we're going to set that aside and move on to our egg yolks. Next step is for our egg yolks. Now I've got 3 eggs that I'm using in this recipe, but I have split them. So I have my yolks here and I've got my whites in the fridge. The reason I've popped my whites in the fridge before I use them is because I find that way I can get a much quicker and much nicer whip up to make a meringue. You'll see in a minute. And once I've got my egg yolks in my bowl, I'm going to add half my sugar. So this is 80 grams of sugar, caster sugar. I'm going to add about 40 grams of it into my egg yolks. So I've just eyeballed it. But we want roughly half of it in there. And now it's time to get mixing. Now this is going to be quite a dark orange to start with, and I'm going to keep mixing it until it goes really pale and it'll ribbon. So once your egg yolks and sugar are ready to go, you should find that they've gone a much paler orange, and you will also see that when you lift your whisk up that it should ribbon, which means in the bowl it'll kind of fall a bit zigzaggy and then blend in back into your mixture. And that's what you're looking for. That's how you know it's also doubled in size. So that's it, it's done. So now we're going to move on to the next bit with our egg whites. Right, time for my egg whites. Now when I split my eggs up, when I separated them, I popped my egg whites into a bowl and popped them in the fridge because I want my egg whites to be really cold. That's going to help it whisk up beautifully and much quicker. So if you've never whisked egg whites before, it's really important that you have a really, really clean bowl. If you have any grease or anything in the bowl that you're mixing it in, it's not going to get the air, it's not going to hold on to it and whip it up. So you need a really, really clean bowl. We're going to tip our egg whites straight in there, and then you can do this by hand, or I am preferring to use my handheld whisk just because it's going to be a bit easier on my arms. So once your egg whites have started to get foamy like this, we're going to start adding the remaining sugar in. So this is the other half of the sugar that I put into my egg yolks. I'm not going to add it all in one go. I'm going to add it in 2 or 3 goes, just making sure I whisk, and that's just going to help the sugar dissolve into my egg whites really, really well. And once you've added all your sugar in, it's time to whip these up. So you want to whip this up until it becomes stiff peaks, and then we will go from there. So once your eggs have got to this really light, fluffy, white stage, and they stand up in stiff peaks when you lift your beaters like that, you know it's ready. If you're feeling brave, there is another test you can do too, and that is the upside down bowl test. If your mixture is stiff enough, you can turn your bowl upside down and it won't fall out, but this is only for the brave. Are you ready for this? It worked! So my egg whites are ready. So to my egg yolk mixture, I'm going to scoop a little bit off my egg whites and pop them in and just give them a really good mix. So I'm going to just grab a decent chunk, maybe about a third or so. I'm just going to give that a mix just to loosen my egg yolk mixture. And once you have combined that first lot of egg whites, we're going to add the rest of it in as well. Now, when you add this lot in, you need to be really gentle. We do not want to lose all that air that we have just spent time putting into our egg whites and into our egg yolks. So I'm going to push all this on top of my bowl. You can see how lighter than air these egg whites are. So once you have got all your mixture into one bowl, you are going to start mixing it together. Now this is really delicate work. You need to do this really gently, so you need to fold it in. If you've never folded before, it's not hard, you just need a bit of patience to do it. So you need to cut through the middle of your mix and then you're lifting it and folding it over. That's what folding is. And every time you fold, you turn your bowl slightly as well. And that just means you're scooping from underneath and you're lifting it up and pushing it over. And every so often I like to go around the whole bowl and do a fold as well. This step cannot be rushed, so take your time with it. And once you have got all of that mixed together, it's time to add in those dry ingredients that we sifted earlier. So all I'm going to do is off my parchment, so I'm just going to tip it in very gently, sprinkling it over the whole thing. And then, like before, we're going to fold this in again. So around and over, take your time. Cut, around, over. And every time you cut and you're folding it over, just give your bowl about a quarter turn. And once you have combined all your dry mixture into your wet there, it's time for the final ingredient. This is 1.5 tablespoons of milk, and I've just popped it in my microwave for about 5 seconds just to warm it up. I don't want it hot, I want it warm. So the best way to check is to put your finger in it, and if you can't feel the warmth of the milk, if it feels just like your skin temperature, if it just feels like nothing, you know that's the right temperature. So I'm just going to pour this in, and then, like with everything else, I'm going to fold it really gently. And once you are done with that, we are ready now to bake our cake. So I have here a Swiss roll tin that I have lined just with some lining paper, and it is ready for me to put my cake mixture in. Now, because this is really light and delicate, you don't want to press it down too much, and you don't want to drop it because that's going to get the air bubbles falling out of it. So you're just trying to ease it into your tin really gently, and when you pour it from your bowl into the tin, you want to try and get it as spread out as you can. So don't put it all in one space, but spread it all the way around the tin as you pour it in. And once you have got all your cake mixture in, you're just very gently going to encourage it to go all the way into the corners of your tin. So you kind of pushing it, rather than pushing it down, you're kind of pushing it outwards into the corners. And once you've put all your mixture in and spread out, I like to use a spatula, just a little one, just to make sure that my whole mixture is flat. You need to get your mixture flat in your pan, because when it bakes, it will rise exactly as it is, so you have your lumps and bumps of your cake across the top. So flattening it out is just going to give you a lovely flat top edge as it bakes. Just before I pop it in my oven, I'm just going to grab it and drop it onto my work surface. And what that's going to do is, if there's any air bubbles inside it, it's going to help it come to the top to make sure that I don't get any pockets of air within my cake. So I'm just going to do that one more time. And that's it. So while I have been making my cake, my oven has been preheating at 190 Celsius. I'm going to pop this cake in the oven. It will take 10 minutes to bake, and it comes straight out, and I will see you on the other side once it's been baked. Right, so my cake is out of the oven. As you can see, it is beautifully done. Now, as soon as your cake comes out of the oven, you want to drop it on your work surface, and that's going to help it not shrink too much as it cools. So before I do anything else, I have to roll this cake up. So I have a couple of spare pieces of parchment here. I'm going to turn this cake out to start with. So we'll pop a piece of parchment on top, and then I'm using another tray over the top of it. I'm going to flip them both over. And try not to drop it all. And now I'm going to peel this parchment paper off my cake. Look at that beautiful cake. So we don't need this bit of parchment any longer. I'm going to get another fresh bit of parchment. I'm going to do the same and flip it back over. This is what's going to be the outside of your cake. So this is the side that we're going to put on the other side before we roll it up. So I'm done with my tins. We'll put them to the side. I'm going to grab this bit of parchment off. If a little bit of your cake sticks to this bit of parchment, don't worry, that's absolutely fine. This is the side that will have our filling in. So now it's time to get rolling. Now I prefer to do this on the flat surface rather than on my cooling rack, but it's going to go back up there in a moment. So before we can roll our cake up, we need to just cut at a diagonal on one side of our cake, and that's just going to make it much easier to roll. So at roughly a 45-degree angle, you're just cutting along the edge, and that's just going to help you out with getting a nice snug roll. So starting at the edge that I've cut, I'm going to fold my parchment over, and then just roll it up, just like that. So that is my cake all rolled up. I'm going to leave it like that to cool down completely, which won't take too long. It'll take about a half hour or so, and then we will make our filling and finish it off. Right, so my cake is cool. It's time to make our filling. Now I'm making a really simple filling today. I'm just going to whip up some double cream, tip that into a nice large bowl. And to this bowl, I'm going to add about 1.5 teaspoons to 2 teaspoons of icing sugar or powdered sugar. You can add this absolutely to taste, so it just depends on how sweet you want your whipped cream to be. And I'm not going to measure it, I'm just going to add a few drops of vanilla as well. And then just time to beat it up. And that is my whipped cream done. So my whipped cream is not quite super stiff yet, as you can see. It's still a bit soft, and the reason I stopped slightly earlier is because I find I like to give it a stir by hand for the last bit to get it to the consistency that I want it to be. I don't want to whip it until it's done completely by machine. I like to just stir it a little bit, and I find the last bit thickens up beautifully just by giving it a little bit of a stir. So now my cream is ready. It's time to put it all together. So we'll bring our cake back over and unroll it. It should unroll nice and easily. Might stick a little bit to the parchment paper. Don't worry about those little bits that stick. If you've got a knife, or you can just use your finger just to encourage it back down. But it's all good. Now towards the end, it may look like it's starting to crack a little. Just go gentle and it will be absolutely fine. There we go. Now my cake is nice and cool, so I'm going to put my cream on to my cake and spread it out. When you spread your cream out, you want to make sure that you don't go all the way to the edges, because what will happen is as you are rolling your cake up, it will push it out of the sides and it will ooze out. So you want to stop 1 centimeter or 2 from the edge, so you're just spreading it out. And you're not going to the very outside edge either, you're just spreading it near the edge, and then as you roll it, it will just compress and it will go out to the edges, and you will get it all the way along the edge. And while I'm spreading my cream out, is a great time to remind you as well to like this video if you've enjoyed this, and to hit that subscribe button so you always know when I release new videos for you. And once you have spread your cream out, it is time for our strawberries. Now these are just regular strawberries that I've chopped up, I've not done anything else to them, and I'm just going to lay them over the top of my cream. Now you can put as much or as little as you want in here. I quite like my strawberries, so I'm going to put a generous amount in. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to slip this off my cooling rack onto my table. And starting at the end that was rolled up first, I'm just going to use my parchment paper to help me with getting the roll going. So as tight as you can get it is better. The tighter the better. Take your time. All the way to the end. And we are done with our roll. So I'm going to cut the ends off. Now, as you can see, the ends, the cream doesn't always get all the way to the end. It doesn't always look great. So, perks of the chef, we're just going to cut about 1 centimetre or so's worth off the end. And that's just going to give a really nice end, like you can see there. That, perks of the chef, you get to enjoy before anyone else does. So I'm just going to do that on both sides, all the way down, and my roll is ready. So I'm going to pick it up nice and careful and pop it on my plate. And then as a little extra finishing touch, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of icing sugar over the top. And there you have it, my matcha roll cake, filled with beautiful whipped up double cream and strawberries. Absolutely gorgeous. Thanks for joining me today, friends. Don't forget to hit like if you haven't already, and do hit the subscribe button too. I shall see you next time. Happy baking.